When it comes to woodwinds, there are two basic types of leaks. Now, there's many different things that can cause a leak, but those can all be broken down into one of two categories. Those two categories are going to be what we're going to call a pad leak or a regulation leak. And I'm going to show you the difference. For a pad leak, we're taking everything else out of the equation except for the one key. We're going to use the E flat key on a saxophone as our example here. Normally it's got a key guard on it like that, but I just took that off so you can see it better on the video. So for some reason, the key isn't coming down and completely sealing the hole. I've got a leak light in the instrument so we can see if the light completely goes away, we know it's sealing. So, and this one's sealing pretty well. But what are some things that could keep it from sealing? Something keeping that pad from fully sealing on the tone hole. Well, how about the pad itself, right? That's going to be one of the first most obvious things. Hopefully your pad looks something like that. It's nice and uniform. There's no tears in it. It's pretty flat. And hopefully it doesn't look anything like this. You got torn leather on it, so that's not going to seal right. I mean, that's the felt that's underneath the leather. That's not going to create a good seal. It's going to be uneven when it hits the tone hole because some of the tone hole is going to hit leather, some of it's going to hit felt. It's going to be, that's not even at all. This is a really old pad that I found in the shop. So these are a few of the things that would keep the pad itself from not sealing. But the pad could be perfect and we still could not have a seal. What about the key itself, right? If I take that key and I bend the snot out of it like that, that's not sealing anymore, right? It's hitting the tone hole down here, but up here, look at all that light coming through. We know that's not right, so that's something that could happen. And that's going to happen quite often with young kids. They're going to bend keys all the time. Try to straighten that out a bit here just for this. Nope, I went too far. There we go, it should be good. So yeah, bent key, very common one. And you can see, if you know what you're doing, how easily I did that. I didn't even use a tool. I just used my hand to straighten that out. Or if you have Knipex pliers wrench, very nice tool there for just grabbing onto the key. We've got those nice smooth jaws, and you can manipulate the key back and forth to straighten everything out. And the other thing, this is something that you're probably not going to be able to do much for in the band room, but it's good to be aware that this could cause the problem, because you know at that point it's going to be like, okay, well, I found the problem, but I know I can't handle it. Time to move on to plan B, get a different instrument, borrow an instrument, something like that. Your pad could be good. Your key could be good. Don't forget about the tone hole, right? If the kid drops it and it dents right on the tone hole, or it could even dent near the tone hole, but that's going to move all the metal and make a little dip, little U-shape into the tone hole, that could cause the problem. So perfect key, perfect pad, but a tone hole issue. So that's something that you want to make sure that you don't overlook either. But those are the reasons that you're usually going to see a pad leak. And pad leak is the first kind of leak that you want to look at. Your pads need to be sealing on the tone holes. Now, that's an individual key, so the second type of leak doesn't apply to that. But what if we have that special circumstance on woodwind instruments where you push one key, but more than one key goes down? So that's called a regulation leak, or if you're kind of old school, some people call it a timing leak. And I don't think that's too bad of a name for it, actually, because when you press one key, I'm going to press the F key on the saxophone. That's the top pearl for where your right hand would be. But watch the F sharp key, the one right above it. That goes down too, doesn't it? And we need those to hit at exactly the same time. This is close, it's not exactly perfect, but let's pretend. I'm going to push just a tiny bit harder just for the purposes of this demo. So we can pretend, let's say that's lined up perfectly. Those two are hitting at exactly the same time. We're all good there, right? So before we ever got to that step, remember, the pads need to be good. So we need to make sure there's no pad leak on the F sharp, there's no pad leak on the F, and then we can start to assess whether or not there's a regulation leak. Now, what if the secondary key, so that's going to be the F sharp key here, when I press the F key, so secondary key is the one you don't touch, primary key is the one you do touch. what if the secondary key hits before the primary key, right? F sharp's going all the way down. F, oh, if I squish the crap out of it, it's can go all the way down, but that's not good for playing. So secondary key hits before the primary key hits. That's going to be called over-regulation. All right, there's for one reason or another, the reason in this case being that I bent the key way up, the F key is not making it home until way after the F sharp key hits its tone hole. So again, that's over-regulation when the secondary key hits first. And we could also have the opposite of that if I bend it the other way, where the F key, the primary key, is hitting, but the secondary key is still open. See that light there? And so if the other one was called over-regulation, it would only make sense that we call this under-regulation. So under-regulation is going to be when the primary key hits, but the secondary key hasn't quite made it to its tone hole yet. A lot of times that's going to be from a bent key, and both of those examples I just showed were because I bent the key. Let me get that close to an adjustment here. So it's really tough to demo, but the way I'm doing that is I'm holding this back bar here. It's underneath the close guard, that bar that goes up and down. I'm just stabilizing that with my left hand, and then with my right hand, I'm manipulating that key up and down for regulation. So that's a common way you would tweak that to get to getting it back into adjustment. Some saxophones, including this one, will actually have screws back there. Those can be good. Let's see. Boy, that is tough to see on the camera. There is you'll just have to trust me. There's a little screw right there, and you can tighten and loosen that, and that will actually adjust the timing for how closely regulated the keys are. And that can adjust the timing and the regulation for those keys. And the screw's not too bad either, because if you're not sure which way to go, just try one way, and if that gets further from the problem, well, you know, okay, you've got to go the other way. If the problem gets fixed, then you know you went the correct way. In general, if you're over-regulated, you want to loosen the screw, lefty-loosey. If you're under-regulated, you want to tighten the screw, so righty-tighty. But those are the two basic types of leaks. Like I said, you can imagine many, many things that would cause those leaks, but when you break it down as far as possible, you need to be asking yourself, okay, is it a pad leak or is it a regulation leak? You don't want to go messing with pads if it's just a regulation leak. If my F key is perfect, if my F sharp key is perfect, I don't want to start trying to adjust the pad or change out pads when all I need to do is just slightly tweak the metal or to adjust the adjustment screw.